And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast where we watch wonkers. Because this week we watched Harmony.
Written by Bill Gallagher.
Directed by Nick Horan.
And aired on November 15th, 2009. As we mentioned last week, same day as episode 1.
The same year as Children of Earth as well, I just realized. Don't know how I didn't realize that in episode 1.
Yeah, and it's weird because, you can combine those two things, Children of Earth and episode 1, and this actually aired the same year as episode 1 of The Prisoner.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Yes. My brain broke while trying to process that sentence.
Too many numbers, too little time, as we'll get to with our amazing encounter, amazing online encounter with James Cunningham, who played number 70 in this episode. But we'll get there at the end because there's a very interesting story to tell there, I think.
It's probably only interesting to us who hyper-analyze The Prisoner every week, but...
Probably.
But anyway.
Anyway, suffice to say, this episode was aired on directly after the first episode, so people watching this live on AMC, which is where it first aired, watch these two back-to-back. And then I believe these didn't actually air. I was looking up. I don't remember exactly, but I'll put it in the show notes. These actually aired months later in the UK on ITV.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, they were not,
they aired in
directly.
December.
Yeah. So just a month later. So, but still, people in the UK had to wait.
Oh no, spoilers on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was, one of the things... So I looked up a couple different articles because I remembered that we were doing that for the original Prisoner, so I was like, all right, whatever, just do the same here. So I found some LiveJournal discussion that was actually pretty interesting,
Oh yeah, I'm glad you found it because I was going to talk about that heavily this episode. The one by Jay Bloom.
Yeah, the guy who was who wrote his Prisoner novel and was listening to the Beach Boys song, Smile, and yeah, that was a trip.
I mean, the Smile stuff was a trip, but the other part that was a trip that I want to mention before we start was later on, he very specifically talks about how this version of The Prisoner is different from the original because the original was objective. Everything we saw as the audience is as it happened, whereas in this interpretation, we are seeing the entire story subjectively through number 6's eyes. And that's why so much of it is is this a dream? Is this actually happening to number 6? What are they actually doing? How much of it is actually happening? How much of it is in his mind? We don't know because we are experiencing it subjectively rather than objectively like in the original show.
Yeah, and I think there's a few more wrinkles to that than this LiveJournal person. I don't remember what their name was.
Jonathan Bloom.
I think there's a few more wrinkles to that than Jonathan Bloom indicates. But overall I would agree with that, especially with the episode that he brought up, which was
Once Upon a
Time, which is, you're just seeing three guys in a room full of toys, basically.
Yeah, and he even says, although Once Upon a Time might be a journey through 6's entire life, that's a direct quote, continuing the quote, but what we actually see is an objective view of three men in a room and the butler with a smoke machine.
Yeah. Yeah, the new series definitely does, and that's a big difference, which I guess we have a differences segment at the end now, but that is a big difference where it's it uses these sort of narrative and film techniques, although obviously it's a TV show, but it uses these sort of techniques to kind of put you in 6's shoes or something, which the original show, I guess, didn't do that much. Maybe.
No, the original show, I think another one of the big changes is, and I think this plays into what I was talking about last week with the intro and outro sequence being the computer screen turning on and turning off, is that the new show uses the actual medium through which the story is being told in a lot more interesting way than the original show. Interestingly, the one time the original show really did something wild with like the medium of television, was living in harmony when they completely redid the intro theme in that Western version, and you didn't know like what's going on. Is this a different TV show? Is the conceit changed? Is it the same people?
Yeah, the most meta aspect of the original show is definitely its intro sequence. Just throughout the entire show, and the outro thing with the bars and number six's face and the construction of the bike or whatever.
Yeah, and I think this episode especially uses like editing, how things are shot, cinematography to just really throw you, the audience, into the thick of it as well.
Yeah, there's something I want to bring up, which you probably noticed too, which is that it happens like 3 or 4 times, I think, throughout the episode, where it's like all of a sudden you won't zoom out because it'll be a cut, but like you'll in quotes zoom out, and it'll be as if you're watching this through a second screen or something, and then you find out that it's like, okay, number 2 is spying on them. I guess that's what it was.
There's so much interesting stuff with that in this episode, in particular too, because we find out that number 6's job that he resigned from was watching people through CCTV cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we, the audience, are the people watching through CCTV cameras, like. But we got to get there first, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, that's pretty much how the episode starts, because it throws you right in. This entire thing so far has felt like a dream, and you go into this episode in the flashback. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how it starts.
We see some shots of the desert, then we see the flashback. Because my first note is desert part 2. Second note, shitty New York elevators, I guess.
6 is back at his apartment with Lucy, I believe her name was.
I think his name is Mike. In the scene, anyway.
Oh, I didn't get that.
His name's Mike.
I didn't get that.
She calls him Mike later on at some point.
Dang. Yeah, giving him a name. All right, then. This is, I guess, a weird extraneous thing to the side, but when I first started the DVD to watch this, because again, we're both watching these on DVD, I didn't get the menu. It just started episode 1 for some reason. So I had to actually go to the menu.
Took me to the menu.
Yeah, that's what it did the first time I started it. It took me to the menu, but I don't know why. It started episode 1.
Arrival. Welcome.
Yeah, it's like trying to keep me from getting to the bottom of the mystery. Just wants me to watch episode 1 again. Anyway, yeah, we're in this apartment with 6 and Lucy.
Yeah, and he's kind of talking about how it's kind of weird how she found him today of all days, the day that he resigned. And she's like, yes, why is that? Why did you resign? And he's like, why do you want to know? Which then, then we get reminded that he resigned by painting resign on his window.
Yeah. Well, just like Patrick McGowan's number 6, he has a very over-the-top way of resigning.
I didn't notice the first time I watched it, all the people watching, like, from the ground floor, looking up and being like, what the hell is going on up there? And just him painting resign in the window.
He doesn't, like, summon the power of thunder, though, so we can't really say that it's as good as Patrick McGowan's.
He doesn't break any teacups.
Yeah. But the original episode, not original episode, the first episode, I remember us talking about this too, was like, it didn't seem to pose the question, why did you resign, right? But now we're getting that was actually in a flashback.
Mm-hmm. And the question of whether or not that's even in some way related to the village at all or not. Because we still don't know that. I mean, we know Lucy was interested, but what's Lucy's whole game here?
Right, and we still don't know. We learn a little bit later. But number 6 wakes up. He's out in the desert like we saw at first, and he's awoken by 16, who claims to be his brother.
So this immediately threw me off. I was immediately off balance the whole episode because I could have sworn episode 1, Arrival, ended with Rover being the one to come and capture 6. And then Harmony opens, 6 is on the dirt, Rover's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, that is really interesting now that you bring it up, because for me, I didn't even, maybe I'm too stuck in the original show. I didn't even think that those were the same scene. I just thought it was a new episode. I thought he just tried to like maybe escape again. Something.
Interesting. Yeah, that could have been the case. I mean, it's never explicitly stated. For some reason, I assumed it was going to be a continuation, since this is more of a mini-series than a regular series, and these two episodes were aired back-to-back, but...
Yeah, it could be, and I guess how you watch them is really gonna determine that, because I probably, if I had watched them back-to-back, you would probably get the impression that that was just a continuation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Again, it's too like dreamlike to tell.
The whole series seems to be really dreamlike. Again, posing the question of like, is this even happening?
Right. I heard this new genre, although I mean people make up these terms all the time or whatever. So, dream punk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good descriptor.
Dream punk.
Yeah.
So what is Inception dream punk?
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't like when you attach the suffix punk, it usually means like powered by something. So like steampunk is everything steam powered, and diesel punk is, well, it's powered by diesel, and then leech punk is everything is powered by leeches.
Leech punk, forgot about that. That was a joke between me and Dylan about a fictional book series. Fictional as in like not fiction books, but like a non-real book series in the leech punk genre.
About a city powered entirely by leeches.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we talked about this on Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast. Check that out. Where the term, the like punk suffix comes from cyberpunk. That was the first one to have it. And then steampunk was was the next big one or whatever. But like originally, when cyberpunk was being invented and codified as like a thing, it wasn't so much a genre, but the couple of guys who were creating these worlds and these stories referred to their characters as cyberpunks in the early 80s. So that's where it came from. Is like it's actually a name for the characters and not the world itself.
Mm-hmm.
In Southern California, actually, you know, that's a close to home thing. Like cyberpunk was created here, or like codified here or whatever. So. But yeah, eventually then it just came to be like, you know, with stuff like Neuromancer and whatnot, it just came to be, you know, the genre of cyberpunk.
Yeah, I'm remembering this conversation now.
So I think it's not necessarily like powered by, although maybe it is now. Maybe that's like kind of because there's cyberpunk and steampunk are the two big ones. So maybe that has that meaning now. But like originally, it was that like it combined the anti-establishment, you know, punk themes with like the burgeoning or whatever cyber, you know, world or like cyber crimes or something like that. So, which I guess kind of fits with, you know, maybe dream punk fits with the Prisoner since it's so dreamlike and he is trying to go against the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
This show, I mean, that I guess kind of leads us to another difference too, is that like this show doesn't really seem to have the anti-establishment, you know, themes that the original one did.
Yeah, it seems to be less anti-establishment, more like technology almost. But
yeah, which
I don't know if I have enough information to say definitively.
Yeah, we need more information. The original one was kind of anti-technology, or at least recognized the villainous things you could do with advancing tech. Like that was definitely a concern of it.
Mm-hmm. I think though that like technology hadn't grown to the point where it was, I guess it wasn't doing those things already like it is come Prisoner 2009. Yeah. Like this is all a little more true to life because all of this is 110% happening already. At least the surveillance aspect of this, and the like, even the job that Six resigns from, just determining patterns from CCTV footage. Like there are private firms, Palantir comes to mind, that like just sift through people's data looking for patterns.
Yeah.
So. Like, we definitely live in the world of The Prisoner 2009. Do we live in the world of Prisoner 1963? Maybe we did in 1963.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick McGoohan couldn't have imagined what was going on.
Well, then number 6 is brought into 2's office, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is when we kind of get a little bit more of the backstory. 16 is supposedly his brother, but he reveals that his brother actually died, so there's no way that he could be his brother. And this kind of...
Well, he thinks he drowned. He keeps seeing visions of his brother at the beach.
Right, and he's not even sure, again, because his memories are kind of missing. He has the partial amnesia thing or whatever, so...
Mm-hmm.
He isn't even sure, but this really reminded me of, back on Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast, check that out, when we watched Torchwood Series 2 and Jack's brother Gray went missing on that beach. Really had the same vibe. Minus the alien attack, of course.
Minus the alien attack.
What if it's in the end, what if we watch episode 6 and it was just aliens?
Bravo, Bill. Bravo.
And they really capitalize on the space age, not space age, but I guess space age, but the space kind of motifs of the end of The Prisoner, which never really I don't want to say it never really came together, but it never really straight up in your face told you what it was all about. And this one, they're just yeah, it was aliens.
Mm-hmm. I mean, turns out all along it wasn't an adaptation of The Prisoner. It was V. Another classic early sci-fi show.
It was just a different show entitled The Prisoner. It's a generic title. They could...
The fact that they're all numbers was a complete coincidence.
Exactly. The creators weren't even aware of the original show. They just recreated Rover coincidentally.
Wow.
No, so anyway, 16 is really distraught over this. He says he just wants his brother back, and he continues to repeat that throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, 2 recommends that 6 goes to therapy for this, and he says this really interesting quote, a man with nothing to hide is a man with nothing to find.
Yeah, got a little slant rhyme there.
2's got some bangers of some lines in this episode. Who can forget, have you had sex with your mother? Well, don't.
Yeah.
That's in the vein of Triple X, that line, but we don't need to go into that.
Triple X, the movie series. We should make that clear, since this is revolving around, sexual content, and not the phrase or whatever, or the descriptor or whatever it is, Triple X.
Mm-hmm.
No, the movie series with Vin Diesel and Ice Cube.
Yeah, the one with the quote, save the world, get the girl, try to look dope while doing it.
Yeah.
So 16 invites 6 over to his house for a barbecue. And his kids are like, "Oh, Uncle 6, it's so good to have you back. We missed you. Uncle 6, 16's brother." And then they're watching this TV show called Wonkers, which I guess everybody in the village watches. This is the only TV show to watch, and even all the characters in Wonkers have numbers as names.
And it's sort of this old-timey soap opera lending, and they're watching it on this old TV and sort of just lending, a little more, I guess, believability to kind of what we were talking about last week, where this seems almost to be the opposite of the original show, where in the original 6 went from just normal everyday life to going to the village where things were a little bit more advanced, whereas here things seem to be a little bit more in the past.
Right. Things are getting pretty weird in the village. I read some indications that we're going to be seeing some of the misconceptions between the village, more misconceptions between the villagers and the invention of certain things along the lines of the number 93 or whatever invented the light bulb.
Yeah.
Number 512.
93 was the guy who died, I believe. Who's still he's still kind of a big force in this episode. They're still concerned with his pictures and stuff. So.
Yeah, because we see 313 later and related to that plot point.
Mm-hmm. When number 6 goes into the therapy session, it looks a lot like one of the facilities in the original village. I don't know if you noticed, but it's very dark, but you can kind of look into the background and see like a corridor that kind of looked like an original prisoner corridor. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Interesting visual parallel there.
6 goes to therapy now, and this was really interesting, just framing-wise. In the back, there's a big sign that says "Way Out" with an arrow, and the first time we see that sign, the way that everything is framed, it says "Way Out," and then the arrow is pointing at Six's head.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that in the UK the signs don't say "exit." Most of the time, they say "Way Out." Just a little odd, I guess, if you're not used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are used to it, I guess it's not. But yeah, it's sort of in my mind-esque, the poster for the Prisoner documentary In My Mind, which is like a silhouette of 6, which is kind of what we see here.
Yeah.
Silhouette of Patrick McGowan, I should say, for that poster. Because there's now 2 6s in the Prisoner universe / franchise.
Depending if this is the same universe or not. Yeah. Same franchise, sure. Same universe. The jury's still out.
The therapist is 70, played by the one and only, or not, James Cunningham.
The one of like dozen on IMDb.
Yeah, we had some difficulty narrowing down which James Cunningham this was for a number of different reasons, but we'll get into that later. For now, and part of that is that all their faces are like covered in shadow in this scene. It's very hard to see either of them.
Yeah, so 70s, he's interviewing 6, trying to dig deep into the psyche, find out what's going on underneath. As 2 says later, he's trying to find the inner 6.
I think 6 isn't having this. He kind of turns it around. He's like, "What about the inner you, huh?" And then you just see that there's a guy sitting behind him.
He says something like, "I know you, and I'm not going to become you."
Mm-hmm.
And, yikes. But he leaves this therapy session disappointed, but nonetheless still confused over whether the 16 is his brother or not. So then, just to reinforce the point, 313 shows up and is like, "Hey, heard you met your brother." Again. Yeah. Like, wow, really laying it on thick here.
Yeah, this is like some if the Truman Show didn't even try, Like...
I mean, can you imagine? Just like, "Hey, heard you met your brother." "What brother?" "Oh, the one you met yesterday. He's your brother." Which is, I mean, even like, I'm actually not convinced that 16 isn't 6's brother by the end of this.
I don't. I mean, it leaves you in a state of just not knowing. So, I think that's to its benefit.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
This show is a lot. I don't necessarily want to make this comparison, but I've already started, so why the hell not? Yeah. Like, the original kind of things were more concrete, as that live journal post kind of indicated, but then, like, the further you went on, the more you realized, like, all right, this is going to amount to just, like, leaving you on just all this information, and you just have to kind of piece it together and get whatever out of it you can, whereas this one, as a much shorter series, is kind of doing that episode by episode.
Right. Each episode leaves you with more questions than you started with.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm really curious to know what the explanations are going to be for all of this.
I think in that sense, it has the spirit of the original, even if it's not all that similar, even if there are major differences, and even if it's a different story and everything, it has the same vibe to it. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This part of the episode, I think, also introduces a bit of a subplot where someone took something out of number six's pockets. Because he reaches in and realizes that he has nothing in his pockets except knives and lint.
Yeah, he's looking for the drawings from the last episode, from Arrival. Drawings of the outside world.
Yeah, man.
He thinks 313 stole
Not
him.
even an acknowledgement of that Batman reference, huh?
Nope.
Well, all right then. I guess I just had to do it myself.
I'm number 6.
Yeah, at the end of this episode. He confronts 16 and he's like, so you took something out of my pockets, right? And he's like, bro, no. I wouldn't do that to you, bro. It felt like...
Laying it on
I know
thick.
he wasn't talking like that, but it almost felt as if he was, you know? Like...
Well, 313 at this point has already vehemently denied stealing it from his pocket,
Right.
so 6 has moved on to the next most likely person, I guess, who happens to be 16.
Move on to number 2.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but like he's had more interaction with 16 than 2, so I suppose that's why his thinking was along that line.
16 alludes to him driving a bus, and he's like, bus? Why would I be able to drive a bus? And he goes, because...
Yeah, 16 says, like, the best way to take your mind off of things is to work.
And apparently in this fictional or not past that number 6 had, he was a bus driver.
Yeah.
He and his brother worked these tours, so he would drive the bus and his brother would give the tour of the village, and they also went out like deep into the desert as part of the tour.
I also love the, like, the pitch, the voiceover for the tour that's trying to convince people to take the tour says, like, already taken the tour and seen everything? See it again! So this is when we get the scene where 2 is talking with 7. He's like, you failed me for the last time, for the first time. And this is when he also has that banger of a line. Well, so 70 says something about like finding the inner 2, and he's like, well, why don't you try? And then he answers one question, and then he says something like, this is all malarkey. Like, I sat on, like, my mom put me on the toilet sideways when I was a kid, and I want to sleep with her. Like, BS. Have you ever had sex with your mother, 70? He goes, no, and he goes, well, don't.
Malarkey. Haven't heard that word in 15 years.
Malarkey? Joe Biden painted it on the side of a bus a year ago. No malarkey. That was one of his campaign slogans.
I missed out.
Yeah, you really did. Anyway.
Then he stuffs a grenade in 70's mouth.
Really like stuffing grenades in people's mouths.
Yeah, it's just a pastime of this number 2. See, this number 2 has to be a lot more multifaceted and have more to him because he's here for 6 episodes.
Have more to
instead
him.
of 1. Oh my god.
I wonder if they chose 6 episodes because number 6.
Yes, I'm sure that's why. I'm sure that was either a part of it or just like, you know, a lot of miniseries actually are 6 episodes, but it kind of, you know, it goes with the show, so.
So, on the tour, 6 finds just a giant anchor in the middle of the desert. And he's like, this means there has to have been water here once. And I'm like, yes, that is what it means.
Yeah,
Probably.
maybe like 1,000 years ago or something. 'Cause it looks ancient. This is actually one of the like promotional images for the show or whatever. I don't know if you've seen it before, but one of the big like publicized images for the show is 6 kneeling next to this anchor.
All hail a mighty anchor.
Mm-hmm. And we were speculating on this last week, but it turns out that in universe, in the village, these people don't have access to the ocean, which is out of universe nearby in the town of however the hell you pronounce it.
Completely forgot the name.
It was yeah, well, I forgot the name too. It was Scott. It started with like an SK or something like that.
I thought I had it in my notes, but I don't.
Oh, it was Swakopmund or something like that.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, Swakopmund it's like a seaside town.
Yeah.
but in universe they're not supposed to be next to the water. So
Well, I think in universe they are next to the water, but they're just not, like, the people in the village are just not allowed to go to the water.
yeah, and they're not aware of it. It seemed like, to me at least.
Yeah. Well, some lady heard the ocean once, but
Yeah.
so we cut now. When we see the anchor, we now cut back to Lucy and Six, and Lucy talking about how, she just really wanted to pick him up. Like, she just wanted to pick up a guy. She wanted to go. She says something like, "I thought if I borrowed your phone, maybe you would want to take me home," and I was right. And he's like, "Yeah, I guess you were."
Yeah, because Six notices that Lucy didn't actually call anyone when she borrowed his phone. So that was a little suspicious. And her entire, her behavior is just suspicious in general.
Yeah, she's throwing off some mad works for the village vibes to me.
Yeah. This is the scene also where Six reveals that he was an analyst for a company called SimCore.
Yeah. Watching through CCTV cameras, analyzing patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So we then cut back to bus driving, and I guess this is a different day of bus driving. Number 2 gets on the bus and tells them that he's going to award one lucky person on the bus a trip to the escape resort.
Yeah, and this is so this is the for show aspect of this is like so high, where he's like, one of you lucky, prisoners, he doesn't use that word, is going to get to escape. Get to go to the escape resort, that is. And it's number 16.
Yeah.
He looks overjoyed about this, like it's the best thing that's ever happened to him in life.
Yeah, he apparently he's wanted to go to the escape resort for years.
Yeah. So number 6 is obviously going along with him because they have the entire, package for the family to go to the resort. So
they basically force him to go.
Yeah.
Well, number 6 then, before going, goes to investigate 313's. He breaks into 313's house, actually.
Yeah, and that's just another dreamlike quality of this is like, yeah, he breaks in and she, obviously they know each other and they're, on fine terms, if not good terms, but like she doesn't really react to this. She's just like, yeah, all right, broke into my house. Sweet.
Well, he finds the images he was looking for in his pocket and he goes, "Wow, I knew you stole it."
She gives some reasoning behind it too, but I forgot what she says.
She wanted to see the images of the outside world, I think, is literally her excuse for this.
So who knows? Maybe she's telling the truth, or maybe she's trying to, dissuade him from, getting access to that. Or maybe, as this episode seems to indicate, 6 is actually being gaslit into there being an outside world. And she's trying to make it seem as if there is one by trying to hide the false evidence that there is one. Or pretending to try and hide it, rather. God.
Oh, God, what's real and what's not?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe all these memories are implanted in 6, a la, what was the ABC?
Yeah, the one with Dr. What's-His-Face? Oh, not
Dr.
ABC.
What's-His-Face?
A, B, and C was the one where they went into dreams, which were less dreamlike than any of this, come to think of it.
But they also, manipulated the dreams to try to, always be the same plot, and so they could find out who did the thing.
Yeah, this whole, I know we've only watched 2 episodes so far, but this is as if every episode was, a combination between the Schizoid Man and... what was the other one with Dr. What's-His-Name, and they replaced 6's mind in a different body or something?
Do not forsake me, oh my darling.
Yeah, it's like a combination of that and Schizoid Man, cranked up to 11. Speaking of 11, 1112 is kind of suspicious of number 2.
Yeah, he says he can't remember any of his childhood, and 2 says just some BS explanation like memory is fickle, don't trust it. Basically, J&T memory cheatsing him.
He's also spying on what number 2 is doing with the woman in the bed.
Right.
That's all we really get from that scene, is that he's spying on that entire exchange, and probably has been for a while.
Very curious to see where that plot thread's gonna go, because at the moment, it's pretty weird. It's the least explained plot thread in the entire spider web of unexplained plot threads.
Yeah, and because of that, it might be in the middle of that web. But we'll have to see. I mean, we'll see within the next month.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be done with this pretty soon.
Yeah, pretty much a month from now. I mean, we'll be discussing the final one. But anyway, 6 goes back to the ruins, which he actually visited before. They were basically a train station, kind of, I guess, lost to time, covered in sand, whatever, out in the middle of the desert. And a lot of the imagery that he's seeing there is mirroring the beach that he visited with his brother as a child.
Right.
So he goes back there with 313 because he remembered something, and he digs up this something, and it's a time capsule, and it has pictures in it. I forget what the pictures were of.
I honestly don't remember, and I don't have it in my notes either, surprisingly.
Probably wasn't that important then. We get to episode 6, and that's what the entire show revolves around.
313 does say that it's very interesting that 6 basically gravitated straight to where the time capsule was hidden without allegedly knowing it was there.
Right, and 6 has no explanation for this.
Yeah, he just kind of goes,
Meanwhile, back in flashback land, Lucy says that even though number 6 resigned, number 6 is completely clued into to being suspicious of her. That didn't make sense, but I think people know what I meant. And he questions her. He's like, "Who sent you? What are you doing here? What are you trying to find out?" And basically all she says in response is that he thinks he resigned, but it's not really over.
Right. 6 then sees, well, somehow they find the beach, actually.
He meets up with this woman who had been on one of the tours, and she was like, "Hey, you were talking about the ocean. I actually heard the ocean once." And this immediately, for me, called to mind, again, maybe I'm just too stuck in the old show, but this immediately called to mind one of those people that 6 would work with who would turn out to be a village plant at the end, you know? But in this one, we just don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's playing into that dream-like, which part of the episode is actually happening, which timeline is real, are any of them real, what's going on.
Definitely. Anyway, all 3 of them, so 6, this woman, and 147, I think that was his name, 140, or his number, 147,
I think
the
so.
Taxi driver. It was the taxi driver.
Yeah, the taxi driver is 147. Yeah.
So they drive out way far into the desert, and they get out, and there's no beach in sight. It's just desert as far as the eye can see. And the woman is like, "Maybe I was wrong." And that was just such a funny moment to me. It was like, we drove out here, the car's broken down on a hunch, you know. But they crest this hill, they go back, I think.
Well, 6 realizes he's supposed to go on a vacation with 16, so he basically steals the taxi, except not really. He just drives the taxi back.
Right, that's what it
for
was.
147, and that's when the car breaks. It's this really funny scene where he pulls up, he gets out, and they're like, "We knew Uncle 6 wouldn't let us down." And they're like, "So, let's get going." And they just look at 147 with steam rising out of the engine of his car.
Steampunk. Just kidding.
So they go on vacation, and this is when 16 basically pulls 6 aside and goes, "Hey, by the way, I'm not your brother. I'm doing this because 2 is gonna like throw me in jail if I don't.
Yeah.
If I don't."
Yeah, because 6 starts freaking out and he starts seeing these visions, hallucinations, but maybe not. Again, we don't know. 2 puts a grenade in his mouth and has him tied up.
And this is when the smile scene happens.
They play, was it Smile by the Beach Boys, I guess?
Yes, so Smile is an experimental album by the Beach Boys, been described both by Jonathan Bloom and other people. Actually, I've heard it described as the Beach Boys' answer to Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is a very avant-garde experimental album. In terms of structure, mixing, they let everybody write and everybody sing on it. Ringo sings a song on it, and he sings like 3 songs total for the Beatles or something ridiculously small. So the Beach Boys were going to come up with Smile, and so the Smile is the name of the album, which is, it's really like a more of a long tone poem than anything, from what I've heard.
I think this was...
We get a snippet of it.
Yeah, I don't...
An opera, I should say.
I don't know too much about the history of the Beach Boys or anything, but I know they wrote one of their albums. The main guy, I forgot his name, but like the leader guy,
Brian Wilson, I believe.
he locked himself in his house for a while, or like decided that he wouldn't come out. He replaced the floor with sand, interestingly enough, for this episode, and I think that was when he wrote the Smile album. I'm not 100% sure if that was the exact album, though.
I believe he wrote most of Smile. The band fell apart, and he finished it when the band got back together.
I don't know. I just remember they wrote one album where like, yeah, Wilson like replaced his floor of his house or apartment with sand or something, and that was, yeah, kind of interesting with this because it's in the desert, so...
Yeah, I think I'm just looking now. Smile is an unfinished album by the American rock band The Beach Boys. It was to be a 12-track concept LP. Instead, the album was shelved and the group released a downscaled version, Smiley Smile.
Oh god, its Wikipedia page is longer than most pages on Wikipedia.
Yeah, because I think this album... Yeah, because I mean, based on skimming this and also my memory, this album does... Like, Brian Wilson has major drug issues and personal mental illness related issues while they're writing this album, and that's why it never gets finished.
Oh man, Jefferson Airplane. Haven't heard that name in years. And the sequel band Jefferson Starship.
The sequel band.
That's what it was, right? They broke up and got back together, and now they leveled up. They from Airplane to Starship or something.
Yeah, and it's even more confusing because the lead singer of Jefferson Starship had like his own side project band just named Starship.
More bands should do that. Like, I don't know how you do it, but like, I don't know,
level up the Beach Boys to the Desert Boys, the Beach Men.
Yeah, or like 9 Inch Nails breaks up and gets back together, and now they're like 10 Inch Nails or something.
10-inch Nails.
I don't even know what 9 Inch Nails is. I don't know what kind of music they make or anything, so.
Weird. So yeah, I mean, for people who are interested, they should go read Jonathan Bloom's live journal post about this, because he draws a lot of interesting comparisons about how this episode is themed around water as an escape mechanism from the village, and how the actual segment of Smile they use is the end of the fire segment right before the water segment of the album.
Mm-hmm. And hey, I mean, once that scene ends, you get the revelation that we talked about before, which is that 16 tells 6 he's not his brother, but then they go to the resort, and they're in the pool and everything. So.
Right.
And yet again, it seems that this franchise, the Prisoner franchise, cannot escape people going in the water with their clothes on. That's the true prison that we're stuck in.
Well, so in the pool, they're fine. They've got like swimming outfits on. But then, yes, 16 just runs fully clothed into the ocean. He's like, come on, 6. And 6 is like, watch out behind you. It's Rover.
Well, no, in the pool, in the resort, in the escape resort, isn't 16 fully clothed? He's at least wearing a shirt.
He might be, but it looked like more like one of those old-timey swimsuits that was full body.
I thought it was, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because he was definitely wearing like a collared shirt. And I thought he was just wearing that into the water. I don't know. That's when he tells 16 that's when 16 tells 6 rather that he had been put up to all this.
Yeah. And, well, there's this really creepy part of the ocean where Rover comes out and the water starts running backwards. Which is wild.
I didn't even notice that until I read it in the live journal post. I didn't visually get that.
It's done really, really well because the water's going backwards, but 16's daughter is running towards 6. So it's not like they just reversed the footage. They actually maybe they reversed the footage and recorded the girl running in front of it. But there's actually like forward motion happening at the same time, which makes it even more eerie.
Wait, 16's daughter wasn't there though, right? It was the woman who heard the ocean who was there, wasn't it?
No, actually that would make more sense. You probably, yeah. That would make more sense. I think the daughter's actually at home watching Wonkers.
Yeah, and again, I know we keep saying this, but it is. It's like a dream. You don't know who's, like, people are just everywhere at once, and you don't know who's where, and you get these scenes kind of recurring almost, because they go out to the ocean, and it kind of, I got it wrong. Like, I thought they went out to the ocean at the earlier part of the episode, and yeah, that's just me screwing up, but, like, it's so dreamlike and confusing.
I think what plays into that is the fact that it all feels very non-linear. There's a certain non-linearity to the whole episode. And dreamlike has become a cliche in this episode, but I want to use it to refer less to like how it feels and more to the actual concept that is when we dream, we don't actually dream the plot that we wake up thinking we did. We typically, allegedly, according to people who have studied this, actually only really dream discrete scenes, and our brain fills in that plot when we wake up, basically. Or if you're lucid dreaming, your brain is filling it in as you're doing it. But we don't really dream a contingent plot. So this episode feels like that. It feels like we're seeing these disparate scenes, and at a later point, we're stringing it together with a plot.
Yeah, kind of. It also feels like the most effed up plan they could possibly imagine, which is to get 6, because he and 16 do have this heart-to-heart where they're like, we may not be brothers, but, you know, I kind of feel like you are my brother, whether that's the village's doing to our minds, or like whether, you know, we actually have come to this friendship or whatever, and then just ripping him away. Mirroring the memory that might be false, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, where Michael's actual brother dies, drowns. And the worst part, or maybe not the worst for 6, is that we don't even know if 16 is actually dead. Because he was put up to all this by 2, it's like, was him dying even part of the plan, actually?
Yeah, and I mean, we
don't know. I mean,
if you want to think that him revealing himself to 6 as not actually his brother is part of the plan, then you can go down more rabbit holes than even exist. You can dig new rabbit holes.
Well, like, that's what's interesting about this, is that because of the fact that they're playing with the medium and the non-linearity of it, with all of the flashbacks, which we never got in the original Prisoner. They can do things like that where you don't know where the plan stops and starts. In classic Prisoner, I actually think this is partially a detriment to the very episodic nature of it, where like the plan for the week had to end by the end of the episode. So you knew who was in on it, what was part of the plan, and what happened as a result of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
From an audience standpoint, anyway. I mean, obviously 6 in universe is going to be messed up from like the schizoid man.
But he also usually knew what was going on too. There was always some sort of big reveal at the end, you know?
Mm-hmm. And even so much that we talked about how 6 was part of the actual like requirement of the village, the existence of 6 was necessary.
Anyway, at the end, 6 tries to get 16's family to even care about what happened to him, but they're too busy watching Wonkers, and then you see them in a bunch of pig masks. Or not a bunch, you just see them wearing the right amount of pig masks, which is 1 per person.
Mm-hmm. 1 per person. Right.
6 gets taken in a straitjacket to what presumably the clinic, which is where the therapy sessions were taking place. And he's screaming his name. He's screaming that he is number 6 to number 2.
Mm-hmm. There's also the scene where he tries to tell 16's family that they're dead. That 16 is dead, sorry, Jesus. That 16 is dead, and they're like, be quiet, we're watching Wonkers. 2 is also watching Wonkers at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it.
There's another weird like screen related thing where when 6 first meets 16's family, the daughter, whose number I don't remember, explains the plot of Wonkers, and then in 6's next therapy sessions, the 70 asks him about his childhood, and instead of explaining his childhood, he just recites word for word the description of Wonkers' plot that he got from 16's daughter, his niece.
Yeah, I thought he was just trying to mess with the therapist.
I mean, probably, but like the fact that he chose that specifically to mess with him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is all about, obviously.
And yeah, then it ends. Very cute. So we talked about this at the beginning, how this aired the same day as Arrival, and I do think that this as a cliffhanger is a bigger like cliffhanger than the one for Arrival was. The one for Arrival was a very, shall we say, pedestrian cliffhanger. He's been captured by Rover. Oh no! Whereas at the end of Harmony, he's screaming, "I am 6! Like I'm part of the village. I'm a prisoner here." Basically breaking down,
accepting his role. It is going by very fast, but it's only 6 episodes, so kind of have to. And maybe while I was watching this, I was like, maybe this is non-chronological, just like the original one. But I don't think so.
Possibly. So, that's Harmony. No real relation to the original Living in Harmony. Well, the idea of creating a false reality for 6 and convincing him of that as fact and then killing off someone, I guess, is like pretty much straight out of Harmony, Living in Harmony. Since they hang that lady that he's
right
supposed to be protecting.
But again, as we've been alluding to this entire time, like the original way they did it almost seems like really juvenile in comparison to what they're doing here, you know? Or not even it might not even be the village's plan that seems juvenile. It might be just like what's actually happening, right? Where it's like, we're going to make this show and the plot is going to be that they hypnotized him into thinking he's in the Old West. And that's our story. Versus like this is much more complex or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very curious to see how faithful the adaptations are moving forward. Not faithful. How much of the original story that they took the title from are they using?
Probably not much. I mean, This one, like, yeah, the plot points may be similar, but like it doesn't really give you the same vibe or the same experience, I think, as Living in Harmony. Nor does Arrival really give you the same experience as the original one. Which I think is to its benefit, you know, if they were to just evoke exactly the same things the original, then, you know, what would the point be?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if I wanted to watch The Prisoner again, I would just watch the original Prisoner again. I appreciate that this is doing something wild and new with it, and I appreciate that it didn't just dip its toes into being wild. It went full on. We have television. We have the way to edit. Let's just freaking go for it, you know?
Yeah, and one thing I really appreciate this show is doing is like the original Prisoner was like, it was pretty campy a lot of the time, and this one feels, maybe I'm just drawing too much and maybe my headspace is just too much in the original, but this one feels kind of campy. Like, but it's a more edgy modern camp, you know? It's like it almost feels like a parody at times of, like, I don't know, 2000s TV shows. You know, the super serious like crime dramas or whatever.
Yeah. There is an element of that, I think. It's definitely playing with those tropes in perhaps a similar way that The Prisoners 1963 played with the Danger Man tropes. We're 1/3 of the way through the series. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to a year ago when we were 1/3 of the way through Sapphire and Steel.
After what, 2 episodes? Yeah.
Yeah. That 10-episode serial, remember that?
Oh my god. I actually
in the train station?
I didn't remember that. Or I didn't remember it was 10 episodes, but yeah, oh my god.
In the train station? Was it 10? Or maybe it was 8. It was 8, sorry.
It was 8, yeah.
In the train station that was clearly just the ITV studios, and how the entire plot like completely changed 4 episodes in.
That was the worst one. I really disliked that story. I really just could not stand that story. And overall I'd say I enjoyed Sapphire and Steel, but man.
Well, should we talk about deleted scenes, or do you have something else to talk about for the episode proper?
I just had the deleted scenes, yeah.
There's 2 deleted scenes on this one. The first one is just an extended version of Lucy's meeting, or the Lucy flashback while Six is talking with 70. Lucy talks about how maybe he just got lucky that today was the day that he resigned and she decided to talk to him. He thinks it's suspicious, obviously, for, you know, good reason.
Right. That one's not too interesting, I think. The second deleted scene is there's a little bit more to it. Six goes into the club and he sees 11-12 there, and they kind of have this discussion about
memory.
11-12 reveals that he reveals his suspicions about number 2, and number like quotes the dream of the butterfly thing.
Yeah, dream of the butterfly, does the butterfly dream of him? Which then made me think of this TV show that used to air, I think it only aired for 1 season, that had this wild premise that was like, it was a cop, and he was in a car crash, and his daughter and his wife were in the car, and when he wakes up from the car crash, his wife survived and his daughter died, but then when he goes to sleep, he wakes up in a reality where his daughter lived but his wife died. And every time he goes to sleep, he swaps between the two, and he's trying to figure out like which is the real reality and like what's going on and why is he doing this.
Man.
And like what happened during the car crash, and it's just like wild.
Yeah, what is that called?
Oh, I don't remember. Like, I remember watching it, and I remember they were building up to something, and then I think it got canceled.
Damn. That sucks. Well, I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes if I can.
Here we go. Nice. It's called Awake.
Oh, wow. The most generic title you could possibly think of for it.
It aired for 13 episodes. Oh yeah, and that was the other cool thing that they were doing, was that he would often get the same case in both realities, but he would find out different information in each one. So he would use information from one reality to solve the case in the other reality.
God,
Jeez.
yeah, that's mind-bending. What year was that?
2012.
Huh. Wow.
It's got Jason. I didn't realize that was Jason Isaacs. Wow. That's pretty wild.
Maybe we should watch that. That's like, maybe it's not sci-fi, but it is like, it's bordering on it. It's like science fantasy.
It's bordering on it. Yeah. It's bordering
we
on
watch
it.
Children of the Stones. That should just be our like thing now. Like, yeah, we watch that. We can watch anything for this.
Wikipedia calls it a police procedural fantasy thriller. Anyway, that scene just made me think of it because I was like, yeah, we don't even know if like the flashbacks occur in the same reality. Like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that scene was probably deleted though because it really feels like Six is in charge, and you probably don't want to have in this story a scene where Six like is really kind of in charge of things because he's just kind of thrown into the deep end with everything else.
mm-hmm.
That's why I would imagine it was cut, but obviously I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Also, I should mention that I had the gender of the guy in Awake. His child was a son, wasn't a daughter. I'm misremembering that. I'm probably conflating the two timelines of the show.
Maybe it was in a different reality that it was a daughter.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no. Oh, no. What is... Oh, no.
Anyway, this show had some actors in it, and as did this episode. And the internet had some information on those actors, so here we are. What do we do with this information? We disseminate it.
Well, let's go over the one actor we know for sure. That's Jeffrey Smith as 16. He's been in Boondock Saints, Downsizing, Suits, Warehouse 13, Ready or Not, the TV show, not the recent movie, F-X, the TV show, and he has a voice acting role in Assassin's Creed Unity.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked through some of the kids who played in the flashbacks. The only interesting one was Oliver Adams, who was the only one who had an additional acting credit besides The Prisoner, and it was, of all things, the British TV show Casualty.
Yeah, looks like his career was a casualty of those two shows.
Wow.
Is that it for them? Can we jump into James Cunningham, the mysterious sort of, I don't know, concoction that is James Cunningham's 0 through at least 27, according to IMDb? All right, This is going to be a little confusing, so strap in here, really brace yourselves and make sure you're ready for some confusion, because I'm confused, even just kind of remembering what we had gone through, an hour ago with trying to figure out who James Cunningham was. So, okay, here we go. Starting from the beginning, we were trying to look up who played 70.
Yes.
I went to the Prisoner's IMDb page in general and looked at the general cast list for all the episodes and clicked on James Cunningham. Dylan, on the other hand, went to the episode page and clicked on that James Cunningham, and we soon realized that those were two different pages. We were looking at two different people on IMDb named James Cunningham, both of which...
It took us a while to figure it out, too.
Because I was like, I don't see the movies and shows that are on your list. And I was like, mine only has 12 credits, yours has 24. And we realized we were on different pages, two different James Cunninghams. Now, someone on IMDb screwed up because these are both credited as number 70 in The Prisoner.
Yeah, so then we discovered, we went to the Prisoner page, the cast list page, and both James Cunninghams appear there, with the one I was on credited for episode 2 and the one Keon was on credited for episode 1,
both
Arrival.
70. The guy credited for episode 1 was also credited as playing him... Sorry, let me start that over. The guy who was credited as 70 in episode 1 was, credited as 70 in 1, but I don't remember 70 being in episode 1.
I seem to remember some sort of weird appearance, but maybe I'm just making that... Maybe the memory's cheating me.
Oh my god! What if this is like some sort of alternate reality game that they set up like in 2009? And
ARG.
Yeah, nobody
no one figured it out except
across it.
us.
Except us. Wait a minute, there's another element to this that I just realized right now. The James Cunningham that was credited in episode 1 has one N. It's Cunningham. The other one has
two.
So we went on this quest, though, to before, I guess we can kind of discuss that in a bit, but like we went on this quest looking up, trying to figure out which one was which and look up pictures of James Cunningham, which we could barely find across the internet.
Yeah, because one of them doesn't have a picture on their IMDb page, specifically the one who's credited as being in Harmony.
And we didn't really figure it out. We couldn't line up the pictures.
No.
Because in the episode, his face is like totally in shadow.
Now, I'm reasonably sure that the one credited as being in Harmony is the actual Cunningham.
I think so too.
That is the actual James Cunningham. But, you can cover all our bases. We're just gonna mention both. We're gonna cover both their acting careers.
The one who's probably not the right one, only having one N. Two N's total in his last name instead of 3 total. There's I don't know. We could figure it out via that, I think, but if I'm gonna do any more Googling at this point. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you're right. It's the other one. It's the one who is on IMDb as James Cunningham, parentheses, Roman numeral 1, end parentheses. It's him.
Mm-hmm. Should I just go through his acting career?
Sure. I mean, yeah. Why not?
He's only got 24 credits. He was in Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, The Prisoner, obviously. Casualty as well, another British TV show. His first acting credit was as a random background character in Mrs. Doubtfire. He was in John Grisham's The Rainmaker. He was in Frasier, Snatch, and Designated Survivor, and that was everything I recognized.
Yep. That's him. Mm-hmm. That's probably the end of the episode, because I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing, no emails, because the first episode of this season hasn't actually gone out when we're recording this yet. We're recording this on the 27th of February. So, if you would like to email us, though, you can reach us at thedoctor@decoratevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on The Prisoner 2009 Harmony. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you find the podcast at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating for the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Anvil, obviously a play on Hammer into Anvil, but until then, the end.